Before I start this video, I'd like to get something out of the way, because I know making a video about someone's sobriety will likely garner criticism due to it being a touchy subject. I'm doing this to let Keffels' audience in on some of the context behind what's been happening over the last few months, and let everyone within LeftTube know about what the Whiteleaf Network and their associates have been doing for several years now. With all that out of the way, let's get right into it. So, I was initially planning on making an entirely different video, but after watching NoCommentChick's recent live stream, I knew I had to make this one instead, because it's clear that Keffels will likely either A. try to sweep this under the rug, B. deny it, C. make excuses, or D. take down any and all content pertaining to what's been exposed of her. For those shocked by the title of this video, I regret to inform you that none of it's clickbait. Keffels' drug addictions being enabled in front of the entire internet, and it seems as though her family, friends and fiancé aren't trying to get her the help she needs, which is really unfortunate. Just when I thought the debate bro community couldn't get any worse than they already are, this has become a reality. I'd say we've reached rock bottom, but we all know it's only gonna get worse from here. This all just serves as yet another example of how this community brings the absolute worst in those who are unfortunate enough to be manipulated into joining them. It's basically become nothing more than a cesspit of self-destructive and antisocial behavior, extreme narcissism, holier-than-thou rhetoric, projection, enablement and brainwashing. Hell, I'll go as far as to call it a cult. Keffels has opened up about her health issues several times, most notably ADHD and fibromyalgia. While opioids are mainly used for pain relief, there's been a huge opioid epidemic in America and Canada since the late 1990s, and Keffels happens to be one of the many people who started off taking it for the appropriate reasons, but ended up going off the deep end. Her having ADHD is also a huge problem, as a major part of it involves a lack of dopamine, and the whole point of being an addict involves the want for a fix to compensate for the lack of dopamine they have. Another person I want to bring up is Xander Hall, who's opened up about his personal life a handful of times. Based on that, how he acts online, how he handles substances as shown in a now infamous clip, how he seems to only have online friends, and how he develops parasocial relationships with his peers, many of whom are much older than him, to the point of copying their points and doing literally anything for the sake of validation. He reads as someone who's incredibly desperate to maintain what he has because it's pretty much the only thing he has, which is a pretty depressing existence if you ask me. These people have one major thing in common. They were in vulnerable places when they were manipulated into thinking that being toxic's the only way to succeed in life. Again, this cult-like mentality the debate bro community has is the stuff of nightmares, and the way they're trying to normalize it makes it even scarier. Of course, this isn't me excusing their behavior. I'm only explaining how the community they're a part of is no better than the right-wing community. They both have a history of taking advantage of vulnerable people. Now, let's finally talk about what you've all been waiting for, the mastermind behind all this madness, the one, the only, Vaush. You want to talk about a master manipulator, an abuser of power, an unhinged egomaniac, someone who should have never been given the platform they have. I'm not joking when I say this is the type of guy who makes people like Daft Pina look good in comparison. This man's a danger to society, and I mean every word of that. Vaush, if by chance you or your equally disgusting associates come across this video, you deserve everything bad that comes your way. Every single one of you are absolute scum, and I'm so happy people are stepping up to you, because you're the epitome of evil, especially you, Vaush. Imagine being so terrified of people having the power to end you for good that you resort to being an absolute psychopath by publicly smearing them and using your minions to do your dirty work. In my opinion, that's an admission of guilt. Actually, you know what? Let me go further. I think you're using hush money behind the scenes as a silencing tactic. After all, you're not above making threats. Whatever happened to that friend of yours who allegedly reported you to the FBI, by the way? Don't act like you have no idea what I'm talking about when we both know you do. Regardless of how many times you want to delude yourself, you can't keep running away from what you've done. And to think, you believe you have the right to talk about people like Shane Dawson when you're infinitely worse. I wonder why you've never said a word about Onision, despite the fact that his abuse towards women and girls has been documented for years. Could it be because his life story hits a little too close to home? Regardless, your pathetic attempts at deflection aren't fooling anyone, just like how Lily Orchard's attempts aren't fooling anybody. Even when the evidence proving your guilt can easily be found, you both treat your audiences like they don't have brains, and it's pathetic. I'd now like to address Keffels directly. It really rubs me the wrong way how you now want to talk about addiction and finding help after getting dragged for your behavior and not being able to run away from the consequences anymore. Even in these tweets, you continue to deflect and lie about people while playing the victim, pretty much making your so-called apology pointless. Last time I checked, you were the one who destroyed what was left of your reputation and ran away a portion of your audience. It's also clear that you have no intention of disassociating from your enablers, but yet again, that's no surprise. You've made it clear to everyone that you could care less if they continued to lead you down a dark path. After all, they're the ones fueling this disaster. As sad as it is to admit, I don't really have much faith in you. You have a history of failing to keep to most of your promises, so who's to say you won't fail to keep this one? Moving on from that, let's take a moment to talk about Julie Terraberry, Chloe Siegel, and David Jinder. I remember vividly how you said you were gonna honor them while on your mission to shut down Kiwi Farms. How do you think they'd feel if they saw you acting the way you did? Do you think they'd view you as a wolf in sheep's clothing who exploited their experiences for selfish reasons? Do you think they'd view you any differently than Kiwi Farms? At the end of the day, your kind has no shame when it comes to low blows, so if that hurts your feelings, oh well. To add insult to injury, you've gotten so desperate that you've offered to make amends with Destiny, the very man who you've been beefing with since July 2021. What makes this so hilarious is how even after your pathetic attempt at offering peace, he still chose to publicly drag you, even going as far as to say that your GoFundMe money likely went to drugs. If that's not a sign of how down bad you are, I don't know what is. To say I feel embarrassed for you would be a huge understatement. You really are a joke. This isn't even a defense for Destiny, because he's mostly responsible for the debate bro community being a thing in the first place, on top of being a piece of garbage himself. I don't understand why he tries to act all superior, because he happens to keep records of all the damning things these people have done when he's literally no better. I wanna end this with bringing up the company that's responsible for everything that's been happening, the White Leaf Network, also known as the White Forest Network. No company with integrity would continue to have ties with clients that make them look bad. This one, however, happens to be so morally bankrupt that even the possibilities of huge financial losses and legal trouble aren't enough to make them care. The only thing they're actually afraid of is being held to the fire for their actions, and I can't wait for that day to happen. I mean, it's already happening with the CEO, so I wouldn't be surprised if the entire company were to collapse by the end of this year at most. When Reckoning Day eventually comes, I'm gonna be celebrating and rubbing it in the faces of all the losers who thought doing business with them was a great idea when in reality, it's a death sentence.